My name is John Katzenberger, and I'm really looking forward to this workshop. We're going to start off by having Richard give a few words about East-West Center, our partner in this workshop for the coming week. So, Richard, please.
Thank you. So my name is Richard Vuylsteke. There's a lot of extra letters in the surname, so it is Vuylsteke. And a very aloha and a really hearty welcome to the East-West Center for this during the deliberations this week. I'm delighted for several levels to have this group here. I thought it'd be incumbent upon me, besides saying a few words, that I would actually say a few things about the East-West Center that's specifically relevant to what you're all doing here today. We'll also go contextualize what we're trying to do, generally speaking. I'm the first alumnus to run the East-West Center. I came 1st of January last year after 30 years in Asia. When I left the University of Hawaii faculty in '86, I took a 2-year leave of absence that turned into 3 decades. People kept calling with good things to do, so my last job was CEO of the American Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong. Well, that's the previous 9 years. Which is also kind of relevant to what I want to say today to you all. First of all, just actually recently, after some first year and a half almost of doing some realignment of the structure and staffing of the East-West Center, we relaunched what we're calling a Pacific Islands Initiative. For years before I returned to the East-West Center, there's been a scattered activities on Pacific Islands, and as funding reduced from the federal government, some of those things actually cut back on the intensity of the activities. I am fully committed to build it back up. The first step was to combine our Pacific Islands Development Program, which had really languished as far as staffing was concerned, and support, to in the interim here to pull it back into our professional development aspect of the East-West Center, which does a large number of things in the Pacific already, to pull together and get more synergy right off the bat to go forward. For those who don't know the center, we're really divided into 3 major areas of education, research, and professional development. The education side is we have an association with the University of Hawaii. We're not part of the university. East-West Road divides our campuses, but we work very clearly and synergistically with the university as well. So we have at present 270 some graduate students in our residence halls, and they are doing masters and PhDs at the University of Hawaii. I was in the same situation. I did my master's and PhD at the UH, but I also had contract activities in the center, 2 in research and 2 in administration, when I was still a graduate student. Those opportunities for our graduate students have dwindled a bit since I left, so we're rebuilding those opportunities as well. Not only to be maybe part of the East-West Center community, but also more contact with both our research and professional development departments. So our student program is growing. My concern is, when I was here in the 70s, there was a much larger number of Pacific Islanders on our campus. Because in those days, we were fully funded, we being the students, were fully funded by the federal government. Now that money has disappeared, and the current Oval Office occupant, anything that deals with education, climate change, science, common sense, seems to be less than funded. And so we have to work around that. We will. But I am committed to also building up our Pacific Island component for an assortment of reasons that probably you all know better than I. So our education program is expanding. We have 375 slots in our dormitory for students that are not filled yet. My goal is to fill them by the end of next year. Our professional development program, as I mentioned, included now PIDP, Pacific Island Development Program, but it's got a lot of leadership activities, and of course, I kind of feel awkward sometimes about leadership training, because the Pacific Islanders we're bringing are already leaders. Many of them already very well qualified. It's more capacity building, looking for new areas that they can apply their existing leadership skills to address other kinds of issues. And so a lot of things we're doing is to look at, the cutting edge science and social science kinds of things and related topics in the Pacific, but make that research and high level kind of an essential scientific work and knowledge actionable. So one of the reasons putting the Pacific Island stuff into the professional development capacity building is so we can work with our researchers, both in the institution and elsewhere, to turn need into action. And that means people. And people with both cross-national and cross-cultural skills, as well as an openness to deal with scientists and social scientists, but also go back and on the grassroots or on the water, basically do things that make a difference. And then we have our outreach part of the East-West Center in addition, which both in Washington D.C. office and here, again, we're putting more emphasis on, among the many things we do, on Pacific Island development things. We're running already a series, I think we have eight two-page working papers on Oceania that have been published out of our Washington office. It's on our website, you can catch that under EWC Washington. And feedback on that, but some of you may be writing for that in the future. The idea is in Washington, I just came back from there last week. You mentioned Pacific Islands, the same thing as decades ago. Small population, scattered over a big area, they all fit in Trenton, New Jersey or something, with the exception of population. Very dismissive as being low on the priority list, which I think is one reason we talk about island states instead of ocean states, because you look at the real estate around, so to speak, ocean real estate around the islands, with all the responsibilities for agriculture, for pelagic fish sustainability, for seabed mining potential, lines of communication and so forth. The concept of Pacific Islands, in a sense, the Chinese are Zhengming, rectification of names. We should be talking about ocean states more, I think, because we'll start thinking territory and not just the land, right? So we're trying to do some mindset reset there. But my view is that we're at the best opportunity now going forward to really bring more of a focus to Pacific, because America loves an enemy, and of course we're seeing the elephant in the room, or the tanker in the ocean is, of course, China. What's happening with their wide array of not all negative, but the impact of the Pacific. How do we reevaluate whether the States or France or Australia, New Zealand, how do we work together to ensure that the things we continue to do are of tone, content, what is expected and needed and relevant. So this is, in short, the reason I'm so delighted to have you all here, because I can make things up real easily, but I prefer to deal with people who tell me what the priorities are, and then I can do my job as CEO of the place to delegate to smart people to bring it about. And that's precisely what I'm looking forward to learning from this group this week. I'll be in and out. I have a meeting at 10, but I'll stay until then this morning. But I'm very anxious for you to be not only to stick to your agenda, but be thinking about the East-West Center's role, what it has been and what it is now, what it could be, and let us know. And I don't just need to have positive suggestions if things are wrong. We have thick skin here, so just let us know, and we'll take it into our consideration, because it's essential that the East-West Center, given its location, be seen as a player and a part of the Pacific, much more than it has been already. And I am very anxious to help that be effective, but also realize we can't do it alone. It's people like yourselves interacting with you all and your institutions that will make that have muscle and focus, direction, with some kinds of clear-cut intermediate and long-term goals. So that's my pitch for the East-West Center, just to open this thing up. You're in the right place at the right time as far as I'm concerned, so go for it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Richard. Well, I think that most of you are probably not familiar with the Aspen Global Change Institute, so I'm going to say a little bit about who we are and what we do, and then the co-chairs are going to introduce kind of the the context and content and ideas for this meeting. And then we'll get into going around the room, and everybody will have a chance to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the agenda. So, I'd like to start out by saying, more than 2/3 of my life I've been in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, so I'm a little bit of a fish out of water being here in the middle of the Pacific. But all of our workshops have not been in Colorado. We've done a few in other places, and finding partners like East West is wonderful to make that possible. So our mission goes back to our very founding in 1989. We assembled a group of people to consider what AGCI could be, what it should be. And the mission basically is very large in scope. It's to further the understanding of Earth systems and global environmental change in the service of society. So it's simple to say, but it's a mouthful and a lifetime effort. We started out pretty much with the idea that physical scientists, natural scientists, were pretty much out of touch with social scientists that study aspects of global environmental change. And so one of our founding principles was to bring together not only interdisciplinary teams of people in the physical sciences, but also interdisciplinary teams from the social scientists. And that has been a thread through all of our workshops going back to the very beginning. This figure kind of gives some sense in proportion to how much time over these 30 years we've talked about or worked on different aspects of the Earth. And certainly climate has been a central thread in many of our workshops, and the human interactions and the economics, socioeconomics, demographics, all of the human components, why people do what they do, how the environment affects them, how they affect the environment, have been central to our workshops. We do a number of things beyond the workshops, and by the way, we typically have anywhere from 2 to 5 workshops a year, and they're of this nature, about 30 people a week long, to tackle different topics in global change. But we also do some place-based research, and I'll say a little bit more in a minute about that, where we're doing field monitoring in the Roaring Fork Valley from a low elevation all the way to the top of the mountains in the Continental Divide, and using that information to inform local resource managers about the effects of climate change on resource management. We have sponsored programs which are off-site from us. One of these is related to energy and the energy climate nexus. We work with a group in San Francisco that is pushing for wiser energy technology and energy policy. And we also have a sponsored program that focuses on communication about science, in particular climate communication. And that program works with a lot of journalists and helps people navigate the landscape of how climate is represented in the media. And we have ongoing education and outreach programs. The public lecture that'll take place this week is one example, but there's many other examples. The place-based research is something that has been going on with us for about the last 5 years, where we assembled a group of people to consider what kind of data is missing in mountain environments, and soil moisture and soil temperature combined with weather measurements at different elevations is a key type of measurement set that is missing. There's plenty of models that represent soil moisture across terrain, but having an elevational gradient with actual measurements is fairly unique, and so we established this network. This is a picture of Ellie Barber from our staff at 12,200 feet checking an instrument that wasn't working. We have many threads through the years that relate to climate prediction, climate extremes, climate modeling, climate observations from all aspects of the Earth, from the Arctic to the equator. And we have had some meetings that have a direct health thread. Back in '91, we had a meeting that focused on vector-borne disease and remote sensing and how that relates to human health and what can be learned from remote sensing and on-the-ground work that can help alleviate public health issues associated with climate change. And many of our meetings have indirect relationship to public health, but one that was particularly relevant was one that we had on global change and natural hazards, which included a strong public health component. More recently, we had a meeting that focused on public health and climate change with a focus on field worker health issues in warm climates. Like we focused on people working, for instance, in sugarcane fields in Costa Rica and chronic kidney disease and how that relates to extreme temperature and humidity. And Henry and Jerry were at that workshop, and in part that led to ideas for this workshop. And then of course here we are today with what we're talking about this week. One of the things that we've talked about with the co-chairs is that we want to consider different kinds of outcomes and products. Certainly ideas about collaboration, things that the group could do are high on that list. And I wanted you to just get a sense of what that looks like when we have a workshop. What you see here is in bold. At the top is the title of a workshop and the year it took place. And then underneath is a paper that was published about that workshop. And usually there's a year lag or 2-year lag or even a 3-year lag. But I think it's important to see that we can accomplish publications that then reach a much wider audience about the deliberations and discussions that take place in these meetings. Here's some more that go back a little bit further in time. This last one, Frontiers of Global Change Science, led to Jerry Meehl and Richard Moss writing kind of an overview of 25 years of what AGCI has been up to. It's a pretty interesting chronicle of the relevance of our work and how it fits into national and international agendas. This is an ongoing process, and so we have other workshops coming up. You can see here what we have online for the rest of this year. And I show this because one of the things we want to do on Thursday at lunchtime, we're going to have a working lunch, and I invite you all to attend that and to come up with ideas that you think would be good for future workshops. We take these ideas and run them through our own kind of internal screening, and then we have a scientific advisory board that takes a look at them. But ultimately, we take these ideas to funding agencies, both public and private funding agencies, to see if we can achieve a match. And if we can, then we're off and we can start to plan and do a workshop like this one. Over the years, we've kind of tried to cover that full breadth of global change, and certainly we've done a fair job of that. But you can see from this Wordle diagram, from this Wordle diagram that climate change has been the most common thread through all of our workshops, and how humans interact with that topic is also a very typical thread. So on Thursday, I just put this up to give you some ideas to be thinking about it before Thursday. It's a very simple process. Like a half a page or 1 page is often adequate if you really go for it, a page and a half or so. But it's not a formal proposal. It's like, it just needs these elements. A title, who might co-chair it, including yourself, a description, why is the topic relevant, the disciplines that are needed, and any ideas you have about possible funding sources, again, both from the public and private sector. Now, over recent years, much of our funding has come from federal agencies, and I list some of them here. We also have funding from a private foundation in San Francisco, the Heising-Simons Foundation, and other private foundations. Recently, federal funding has become very difficult, but this particular workshop has been funded by NASA and the Heising-Simons Foundation. So over our history, NASA has been the most consistent federal agency in the US that has supported us. We occasionally also get international travel support from international groups, particularly associated with climate. And I'd like to close with a special thanks to the East-West Center. This is our first time collaborating, and although Vicki came to one of our workshops a while ago, but we're thrilled to be here and to be able to contribute to this effort, and we hope to work with you not just this week, but beyond this week to see if we can get something out of this workshop and share it with others. So, thank you.